Hi, I'm Bart Hanson. I'm the owner and lead instructor for CrushLivePoker.com. The following hand comes from our call-in show that we record live at 2 p.m. Eastern Time every Monday. If you enjoy this video, hit that like button, and if you want to submit to be on the show, take a look at the information in the description.
So I have a 1-3 500 cap home game hand here.
One three
The
500 cap home game. Okay.
hmm
Yep.
the villain is under the gun, and they are a loose passive player. Not a lot of opens, a lot of limp folds, a lot of check folds.
Okay.
But I don't have a ton of history with him, despite this being a home game. So he opens to 20 from under the gun, which is this game can usually play more like a 2-5, but it's been playing a lot smaller lately. So this is a really big open.
Okay.
It folds all the way to the hero in the big blind, who looks down at two blackjacks. And I debated a 3-bet, but was pretty sure that with this villain, if they did have a premium hand, it was just going to go 3-bet and then a jam. And I was like, let's just take a flop and see if we can outplay him.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you can flat with some of these hands. I mean, if you're talking about the fact that this seems like it's a super strong open because it's a large open and this guy plays passive, and you also don't have dead money in between. Like when there is dead money in between, you're definitely more incentivized to 3-bet to get it heads up and you get an overlay on the pot. But you can call heads up in the big blind. I've even done this with hands as strong as queens here sometimes too. So I don't really have a huge issue with it. So you make the call with jacks and your heads up against this loose passive under the gun, large open to 20, right? Okay.
Yes, and we are about 400 effective to start the hand.
Okay, 400 effective. Okay.
All right, so we've got about 40 in the pot, and the flop comes ace of spades, 10 of hearts, 2 of clubs.
Ace of spades, 10 of hearts, 2 of clubs. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
So not a horrible flop. I obviously check, and he bets half the pot. He bets 20. And I just felt like his entire range would bet this flop regardless. So, he is pretty passive, though, so I guess I kind of ruled out kings and queens right away because I think he would have checked the flop, but I also ruled out aces and, your two pair plus hands because I figured he would have slow played a relatively dry board.
But you just said that he was going to bet his entire range, right? Is that what
Yeah,
you said?
I did, so those don't make any sense.
I just, it's not necessarily, I mean, here's the thing. Like, I'm not saying that I would necessarily fold, but if the guy is super, super, you know, if he's super tight in the fact that he's raising under the gun, really what you're hoping for here is if he's like betting like eights or nines, which, I mean, it's possible. He could also
I don't even
have
think
like,
he'd open eights or nines.
well, I mean, he could possibly have king, queen suited, something like that. I mean,
Yeah.
I've made crazy folds like this before where it's like, well, this guy's betting an ace or he's got kings or queens some of the times here too. I mean, an ace is probably one of the worst flops you want to see, but it's only half pot. So you call.
So I call, so the pot's 80, and the turn makes me real happy. The turn's the jack of hearts.
Okay. So you have a set now.
I do. I did turn a set
Hmm.
and opted to check it, and he comes out for 25, which I thought was weird.
Why is that weird?
25 into 80 on a pretty high coordinated board. I would have figured if he had a big piece, he'd have started to build more.
Well, I mean, I think
And
I look at this as like it's ace king or ace queen, and doesn't want to really like allow a free card to come out. It's sort of what I call like a reverse stop bet. Like it's very probably non-nutted, but he doesn't want to check it back, so he's going to bet small and then take a showdown here at the end.
almost like he doesn't want to bet, but he knows he's supposed to.
He just doesn't want to face a big bet on the river, so he bets here
Okay.
to check it back. Call that like a reverse block, reverse stop, something like that. I mean, as played, I
Oh,
think you have
almost like
a very clear cut check raise, right? I mean,
I did.
the thing that I would say is that I might even come out and lead the turn, which by the way you are allowed to do, especially from the blind. A check call lead is something that's actually a part of a fundamentally sound strategy. In certain cases, maybe not necessarily on this card, but if you think it's going to get checked through a fair amount, and you think that
hmm
sometimes the best way to like get the most amount of money in the pot, you kind of come out and bet. Like I said, this isn't necessarily the best example. Where I come out and check call lead from the big blind is like if I make a flush or I make two pair
Yeah.
and I think it's going to get checked through, something like that. But okay, you check, he bets 25. Yeah, I mean, you've definitely raised.
Yeah, so I start doing the pot and the stack math in my head, and I decided to check raise to 95.
Okay.
And he tanks for a little while and then finally calls. So I had set up a pretty good river jam. I think at this point there's 270 in the pot, and I have 260 to 270 behind. And as I look at this, I was like,
So
okay, just
if
no
you
heart.
if you have 260 to 270 behind and the pot's 270 now and he bet
Hmm.
25, I might make it a little bit larger. I might make it like
Okay,
120 on the turn just to get a little bit more
gotcha,
money in the pot. Then the pot would be like 310 and you'd have like 200 left. It's just a little bit easier to get the money in, but okay. So you get about a pot size bet
gotcha.
left and now the river,
Now the river's the queen of clubs.
queen of clubs. Okay.
Yeah,
So there's a
didn't
one-liner out
didn't
there.
really like it.
There's a one-liner
Yeah,
out
there's a
there.
one-liner to a straight.
I mean, this is the.
Um,
Did you hear the last caller? Obviously, you were on hold, right?
I heard part of the last caller,
Well, you heard the end
and
of the
I like
last.
I
You heard the end of the last caller, right?
yeah, and I was able to read the description. I got it running on my TV here too.
So the last caller was a situation where I said, and I keep harping this over and over again. Hey, like I don't like to check call the river at these stakes, right?
Hmm.
It's usually a bet fold. However, there is nothing wrong with checking the river with the intention of folding to a bet. That doesn't mean you're giving away the pot by any means. The reason why you're checking the river is because you think that there's a chance you're going to win if it goes check check. But if your opponent bets, he's usually going to have you beat. And I see that,
Hmm.
and that was the case with the last guy when he bet out with the nut straight on a three flush board, and two people called him, and I was just like, this guy's like I didn't think he was good at the end. Here, I think it's a situation where, yeah, like you beat Ace Queen, and maybe Ace Queen like possibly, um, would call if you were to bet here, but I think you might have run out of value here, and I might just plan on check folding, and you're losing the Ace King, and that's like a
Hmm.
huge portion of this guy's range, right? There's 12 because you said he was loose passive. He probably raises
Hmm.
all his Ace King. That's his primary raise hand, right? Ace King.
Hmm.
So you lose to Ace King. I don't know if King's probably I don't know if King's bets on the flop and on turn then calls a check raise, but really it's Ace King. And obviously you also lose to pocket aces too, which
Hmm.
yeah, it might you might think, well, it would put the hammer down more in the turn, and it could quite possibly do that. I think that checking with the intention of check folding to a normal size bet here is most likely going to be the most profitable play instead of betting to try to get called by a worse hand.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I had part of this. I could hear myself in the back of my head. I had set up a river jam with a near nutted hand, and then like a week ago I had chickened out, went for thin value, and I was just really irritated that I took the time to set it up and then didn't follow through and could have like missed out on like $150 in value. So in this spot, I saw that card, absolutely hated it, but I was like, okay, I set up the river jam. It's going to be tough to call if he doesn't have a king. So I actually jammed.
Yeah, but it's going to be tough to call if he doesn't have a king. Okay. So, don't you basically have the best hand that isn't a king here? That's
Yes.
I guess besides maybe pocket aces, but I tend to discount aces because of the fact that the sizing looks a little strange to me for aces when he bets 20 and then just 25 on the turn. So the only hands
My
that
thoughts
you
exactly.
lose to that aren't a king, right, are pocket aces and
Hmm.
pocket queens. I tend to discount those hands. Even queens is queens betting 25 and then calling a check raise on the turn. Queens would have to bet the flop, bet again on the turn, and call a check raise. That's even probably more likely than aces because somebody's like, whoa, you might have
Hmm.
queens. So if you throw queens out, and we don't really think that he's got aces because of the action, you have the best hand that's not a king. So if you just stay with me here, Brett. If you agree with me
Hmm.
that you have the best hand that is not a king, why
Hmm.
would you want to bet all in to make it hard for anything but a king to call?
No, you wouldn't. If you thought you had the best hand, you should be betting for value.
Well, it just doesn't. You're at the top. You're base. You don't want everything to fold out. That's not a king,
No.
right? Especially if a king is a
Right.
part of the guy's range here too.
Which
So,
it is.
all right. So hero jams. Because if you
So I
jam and you
jam
get the guy
and
to fold like ace queen, it's a disaster, right?
yes. I jam. He tanks for a while, and as soon as he started to tank, I was like, okay, he has no king. I've got him. He's got a smaller set. Please call. And after maybe 60 seconds to 2 minutes, he finally folds aces face up.
Wow. So
Yeah.
you accidentally bluffed him off of the best hand.
Accidentally turned the second set into a bluff.
Wow, that's really something. I mean, I got to be honest with you. I mean, I wouldn't have played the hand the way the guy did in terms of sizing, but it's probably pretty hard for the guy to fold aces there. Because I would
Yeah,
never I excuse me, it's hard for him to call with aces. You probably would have got the fold from me. I mean, it would have been a little bit peculiar in the sense where I would have been like, wow, this guy's shoving, but the way that I would have thought about it if I was your opponent at this level is that even though I would have found your river shove peculiar, because I would have figured, oh, you might want to get value from a king, because really you're representing king queen when you check raise turn. I would have just default. I mean, I would have been like, yeah, but I have so many kings here. When I bet the flop and call a check raise, like, there's no way some guy's running some ridiculous maniacal bluff here. You know, that's what I would have thought. So I would have been like,
Certainly
well,
wasn't maniacal.
I guess I'll just fold my ace here. This guy obviously has a king, and that's a very interesting one. But I hope you understand what I'm talking about before there.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And I mean, as soon as you started talking about the sizing on the turn, I realized it made a lot more sense that if we go a little bigger, rather than jamming for the entire pot, we're jamming for 2/3 to 3/4, which looks more like a bluff or value, and they got to figure it out.
Well, I mean, a bluff or value is polarization, but still. Anyways, I appreciate the call. If you like what you've seen here, please hit the subscribe button. And if you enjoyed this call in hand, hit the like button down below. To check out crushlivepoker.com, click on the link in the description. Use the code YTA300 to get the first 30 days for free.